All right, welcome to Infiltrate Radio. Today is, I forgot already, June 19th, 2019. And this is episode, I think, 21. And we've got some special guests here in the studio. Again, I'm calling it the studio. Here in Rochester. So Charles and Nicole Moreland, am I saying your last name correct?
Yes.
All right,
Yeah,
from Rochester Parkour. And for those who don't know, I guess we can start there. Because I get that whenever I say, the parkour studio next door to me, occasionally I do get a look like, what is that? What is parkour? So maybe you can, either one of you want to go through what exactly would you consider parkour to be?
Yeah, absolutely. I think more recently it's starting to get way more mainstream in the sense of we were introduced not that long ago to I think it was an older person too, definitely a grandfather. And we explained that we were gym owners. It's oh, what kind of gym? And then we said parkour. It's oh, cool. She's like, you know what that is?
Right.
Like, oh yeah, absolutely. My kids talk about it all the time. I see it on TV. It's oh, sweet.
Excellent.
We're starting to make it. We're starting to get into it. But yeah, for those of you out there that don't know what parkour is just a training discipline. It's a way of approaching fitness, and instead of just lifting weights to try to enhance the capacities of your body, you move around obstacles, and you're learning how to see an environment and how to see different movements and know what kind of capabilities you have, and then you challenge yourself and you say normally a parkour training session starts out with a question. You say, I wonder if I can do this, or if I can do that, if I can climb up this 6-foot wall, or if it's possible to balance across this bar or anything else like that. And then you kind of through slow progressions you learn how to slowly accomplish more and more skills, and then you start to get a bigger movement vocabulary, and then you start to see these wonderful spaces, and you go, oh man, there's so many new things that I can do here instead of just seeing a wall and feeling limited by it.
Right.
It's now a tool that you can use to express yourself or have fun on.
And we'll get a little further into kind of the depths of it too here, but I usually start out by talking about what we're drinking, because that's a part of this too here. So you guys were nice enough to bring some of this Redemption High Rye Bourbon pre-prohibition whiskey. I guess you could say bourbon whiskey.
This is my daily jam.
This is your jam right here?
Yeah.
It's pretty good. I like it.
It's amazing.
I like it. I feel like I've either had it or I've seen a different version of Redemption. Maybe they make a different kind.
Maybe.
The brand?
We only ever go to the liquor store, right next to Universal Liquor, next to your shop. I think that's the only Redemption brand that they have there, but I mean, it's really good. It's great.
And then that Springbrook Adirondack blended straight bourbon is what you're drinking,
I'm kind of digging that.
It's nice, right?
Yeah, it's very nice.
There's a place over here by where Tony D's is, a liquor store, that I got recommended that stuff.
Nice.
So it's good. And then Nicole, what are you drinking? You're drinking the
Try Your Luck.
Try Your Luck by Anything But Beer. Yeah, so they're a New York. I don't even know if you can call them a cider maker. They make all sorts of weird stuff too. So they'll make stuff from vegetables and add stuff I showed the cardamom and blueberry and weird stuff that isn't necessarily a cider, but it's anything but beer essentially.
So it's not beer. It's even though it says it's an ale.
Correct. It's made from something else. So some of them are actually brewed like a beer, but it's made from, instead of barley and wheat and that kind of thing, it's made from vegetables or.
It's gluten-free for all those celiacs out there.
Correct.
There you go.
So
where do you find this?
You're not going to get a beer taste from it, but it's got, it definitely doesn't taste like beer, right, Nicole?
Can I try a sip?
No, yeah, it's pretty good. Actually, it's not as sweet as I was worried that it would be.
Yeah, it's got chai
It's good
spices
flavor.
to it.
Yeah.
They tend to come to me, especially the cider makers and the kind of off the wall stuff, because we're the kind of venue that's all right, you can go to a spot that has 10 beer lines and maybe 1 or 2 cider lines. How likely are they going to change out that cider line for something made from sweet potatoes or something?
Sure.
Yeah, right.
But for us, it's okay, well, we want something different. We have a lot of people that want the gluten-free option, so we tend to attract those makers. So
that's really good. I kind of dig that.
The notes are ginger, chai, and apple. Delicious.
So those are our imbibements for this episode. For anyone that's wondering, maybe I'll post a picture of it afterwards. So
drink with us.
You gave kind of the definition of parkour, and I've also heard free running. Now I wanted to gauge your reaction to
No,
me
that's good.
saying that, because there's obviously, is there a difference or is there not a difference, or is that a completely different sport, or what's the what would you say?
Depends on who you ask.
Oh yeah, it depends on the community that you're in, and the people that you're asking, and what they've been exposed to, and what the other people in the community that they train with have been exposed to in the past, and that kind of thing. I think the greatest, the most amazing thing about parkour is that it's essentially open source. There's no headquarters. There's no technically like any owner of parkour, even though people title David Bell with like, you know, the starting of it and anything else. But after it got its name, it was kind of just like, all right, great, have fun with it. And so that's also one of the greatest downfalls of parkour, though, because anybody who's anybody can do anything and call it parkour. And so it helped it grow really quickly. But now, especially with us being, you know, a business and trying to, you know, take it away from what some people believe is like, you know, oh, parkour, it's like reckless and dangerous. Like, no, this couldn't be anything further from that. I really like my body. I like it in one solid shape, in one solid piece, and you know, I'm very thankful that my right arm is connected to my body, and
several bones aren't broken within it.
Oh, right, exactly. And so, you know, we spend a lot of time just focusing on you know, safety and you know, developing our coordination and making sure that we approach things nice and careful and whatnot. But I mean, when it's really hard to fight all the viral media of just like, you know, young kids jumping off roofs.
Well,
Like,
I think that's kind of where a lot of these cool new sports start from too. You know, with you know, like skateboarding and parkour. I mean, it's with kids doing stuff. Oh, I wonder if I could do this. And they start just jumping off of buildings or running across, right? Of course. And then it develops into something like those are the kind of sports that I really dig. I guess you can call them the extreme sports or whatever. Sure. Mm-hmm. I'm not a big like football guy or baseball or any of that stuff. Like if I'm going to watch something like UFC even and those kind of things are the sports that I was into when I was younger and still now. So obviously there's not a I was going to say society, like a board that says this is what it constitutes parkour. Correct. Or whatever. Right. But essentially it's taking things that maybe you wouldn't necessarily think of as gym equipment and utilizing it to do movement, right?
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
So going back to free running, I feel like, at least for me, I consider it separate, but only in that I believe parkour to be the training discipline, and that the application has many opportunities. And so while I would say free running could be considered the same, for me, in the way that I value training, I would say that is an application of parkour. Huh.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah. Not that that's correct, because I am my own human and everybody gets their own opinion, but.
And as we look, because I hate heights.
Oh yeah,
I hate them. So as I look out,
you got a lot of heights out here.
Yeah, out the window here, and I'm just thinking about, you know, because you see the videos too of kids and people doing things, you know, jumping from one building to the other and so forth. There's no way I could possibly ever do that.
And you don't have to.
And I think that's probably what you're trying.
Nobody's going to force you.
That's what you're trying to break down, right? With your business and teaching one, obviously safety and stuff like that. So what would be the first kind of thing that you would show someone if they come into your studio?
Quadrupedal movement.
Oh yeah.
So what is that? Explain that, because I mean, I know most people know what that is, but
yeah,
I don't.
Oh yeah, well, how about the other people? So humans are bipedal creatures by nature. Yeah. We like ever since we were 1 year old, or you know, possibly we were late bloomers and we waited till 2, but we try to stand up and we walk on 2 legs. So we're bipedal movers. We walk on 2 legs. We get ourselves around. It's a really efficient, easy way of moving. But we have arms, and we can use them if we wanted to support ourselves. Not like, you know, becoming bipeds and handstand walking and using arms, but just utilizing all 4 limbs at the same time. And we literally crawl. We crawl like we did. Well, I mean, not necessarily like we did when we were toddlers. We have rules of like, hey, let's not put hard parts of our body on hard things. So like the floor is hard, and so bashing your elbow on hard stuff isn't the most fun. And then constantly putting your knees on stuff. Like there are better ways that we can move. And so we teach people how to move on their hands and their feet. And it's probably the first, like, it's amazing watching people go through that first moment of like, I'm in this class and now they're making me crawl on the floor. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
This is so weird. It's like, oh yeah, I get it. Get used to it, because that's parkour.
Right.
Just like
taking away all complexity.
Oh yeah.
And making it pure coordination on flat ground first, so we can apply it eventually to quote unquote 3-dimensional space. Not that we're not in 3-dimensional space all the time.
Yeah. But you'd be amazed at how many people get down on their hands and feet, and then they I mean, you're telling them like, okay, we're gonna move just like we walk. We walk in a contralateral pattern, and that's just a really like big way of saying that we move in opposites. And you don't really focus on it. Your right arm swings forward, your left leg swings forward, and you're just kind of, it would be really awkward though the second you watch somebody like walk with their left side first and the right side, and you're like, oh, that looks like very awkward. It's weird. It's the same awkward feeling when you're doing it on the floor. And so we'll tell people like, oh, let's try to move our right hand and our left foot, and they get there and go, where's my left foot? What? Oh my God. And then they just sit there and they're like constantly shuffling their hands back and forth. And they're like, oh. It's like,
I tried to learn how to do the moonwalk a while back, right? So you should maybe teach some of that, because what that is, the way that Michael Jackson developed it, I mean, you're basically walking, but you have to make it look as though you're walking forward, but you're in actuality moving backwards. So the movement is really like it doesn't work in your brain when you first start to like try and do
Alzheimer's.
it. Yeah, it's like, it's really a difficult thing, because you're actually lifting the foot that is not going to move, which typically when you're walking forward, you lift you kind of lift on your toe. And then that's the foot that's going to go forward. Mm-hmm. And I'm making little hand gestures here. But the foot that's flat on the ground is the one that actually ends up moving. Yeah. But and your arms also have to make the movement as if you're moving forward, but you're, it's really like way more complex than anyone would think if you try and learn it. But I imagine there's some of that too, when you're trying to walk on all fours, like trying to rethink how you're actually
absolutely
moving and stuff. So interesting.
But it's a good first lesson, because it really just kind of breaks down that boundary and gets them understanding that
that they're not going to backflip off a 7-foot wall their first day.
So you don't throw them on top of the building first day. And
trial by fire.
You gotta jump from this one to the next one.
If you jump off and live, then it was meant to be.
I actually had a conversation with someone. Where were we? I think I was actually at the bar, and we had some sort of motorcycle extreme sport. They were doing flips with the motorcycle.
Whoa.
And we were talking about, they were going up on these giant dirt things and then doing 360s, and spinning around and doing all this. And it's like, how do you start doing that? When is like I'm guessing you start by just kind of jumping little hills or something, and then you're like, oh, what if I took my feet off when I'm in the air or whatever, and you progressively get like better and better at it, which is kind of what you're doing, right?
I'm sure it's the same. The second you add to like an implement, my brain like doesn't work that way. No. It's like I'm so good at seeing movement and saying, oh, this is how you break down all the pieces of the puzzle that make this like gigantic, super dynamic, really fun movement. But the second you add a motorcycle or a bicycle or a skateboard, it's just like, no, I don't get it.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So obviously it's an unusual, I don't want to say unusual, but unusual sport and then business to get into, right?
Sure.
So how long have you been doing it, and what kind of got you into starting to do parkour?
Let's see. I discovered parkour in the spring of 2006.
Huh.
No, it would have been 2007, spring of 2007. I was a student at RIT. It's good, right? It's really good. He's pouring more redemption right now. That's good.
Don't tell him how much of this.
I'm gonna break into that too.
Actually, can you pour me a little bit of the other one first so I can test it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I never got to try it. Charlie just went straight for the Adirondack, and it's gone already.
It's very good.
I noticed also you guys you have the rubber rings there. We'll talk about that on your on your hand.
Happy to.
You gotta have the rubber rings.
Yeah.
Out of context. Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness.
But yeah,
Everyone's like, what the hell?
Yeah,
rubber
what is
rings?
going on? Yeah.
To be continued.
What are they into? So in the spring of 2007, I was a first year student at RIT, and I had my life like planned out. I went to an all boys Catholic military high school
No shit.
in Albany. Oh
So
yeah,
I went to an all boys Catholic high school myself too.
Oh, cool.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
Not here in Queens, but
Oh, it's terrible.
and then like
Shared experience.
2 years after they changed it to co-ed.
What?
Yeah.
No, good.
Anyway, sorry.
No, LaSalle Institute in Troy, New York has not gone that way yet. Although my elementary school, I grew up in Michigan, and then when I was 10, my family moved to Albany, New York. And I went from like, public education. I loved it. I thought it was really fun. And then, everything else. And then I get put in this like, Albany is a politician's town. And I got put in this all boys elementary school, and it was awful. These kids have been together since they were, 3 years old. All their parents are politicians or somehow work in the Capitol, and the kids can do anything they want because their parents give so much money to this private school,
Yeah.
and so like they never get in trouble. And I was just picked on constantly, but yeah. So I went to an all boys Catholic military high school, and as much as like the actual school environment was kind of cruddy, but I actually kind of dug the military aspect, and I thought for sure that I was going to do military. I actually applied to the Air Force Academy, and I technically never got rejected. They just lost my application.
Huh.
They said we never got it, and then my school counselor was like, no, I sent it on this day. I've got proof, blah blah, blah, and whatever. They're like, oh, you can just reapply next year. And I was like, no, screw you. I'm
Yeah.
going to college right now. And so I ended up going. I chose RIT. I was big on actually like it's such a weird mixture, but like I was big on art. I went to RIT for fine art, and I got some scholarship money to go as well. And then I was going to do the ROTC program. And so I was in the Army ROTC program. I had everything planned out. And then it was like, how much time do we have? This is a really long story of like, whatever.
We have a lot of time,
Cool,
actually.
yeah.
As much time as we want.
So this is like...
Let me just ask you, so it was going to be initially, you were going for, your major was fine art?
I was fine art,
So
but
what-
it really
what-
was just to help me get into RIT. And then I was going to like kind of figure out what I wanted to do and switch my major.
I was going to
And,
say, like,
yeah.
what was the plan for the fine art? Like, you were going to
I was probably going to...
manage a museum?
So I'd actually done some flying and aviation, and I was really like, because I wanted to do, the Air Force Academy, I was pretty like huge on avionics, and that was something that was really like, close to me. And so I saw an opportunity to at least like get something like that with the Army. The Air Force program at RIT wasn't huge. It wasn't great. The Army program was way better. And so I was like, oh yeah, I definitely want to do this. And I was just kind of going to get my foot in the door, figure out where I fit in the best, and then just kind of like, go that way. But after about 8 weeks, so I was like, training with ROTC. I was doing everything with ROTC. I was waking up and like, doing the runs. I did a couple of PFTs and was like on the extended scale because they cap out at 300. And then like, obviously they're like, oh, if you do 50 crunches, then
What's
you can
PFT?
do...
Yeah, thank you. I was about to ask.
The physical fitness test.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you,
it's
thank
just like, you have to run 3 miles. You have to do as many push-ups as you can in 2 minutes. And you have to do as many sit-ups as you can in 2. It's really lame. I believe they've changed it since then. But it was kind of just like, this is nothing. And even so, like the push-ups that they count as push-ups are like, that's not. But so it was like, I do 90 push-ups. Like, shut up, you don't do 90 push-ups. But whatever. And so I was like, I was on the extended scale, and I remember this one moment where I got this form, and they were gonna go on their first outing to Fort Drum. I think it was Fort Drum. And they were gonna like get to fly in Chinooks and like all this other like helicopters. I was so excited about it. And I remember getting this form, and it had a box on it of, have you ever had asthma since the age of 13? And it's like, I looked at that and I go like, technically, yeah, but it's never bothered me.
Right.
Like, you know, but I haven't had an asthma attack since I was like really young. I'm super physically fit, and like I was running 3 miles in 17 minutes, you know, like I've never, you know, but for some reason I checked that box because it was true. And that was not the thing to do. And so suddenly they were like, oh my gosh, you've got asthma. Oh, we got to like be really careful about this. And we have to like send in for, you know, special exemption for you to go and everything else like that. And it turned out that I was like, I wasn't cleared to go to Fort Drum. And I was really pissed off at that. I was like, that's so stupid. And the entire time, like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. And so I was actually living on the Army ROTC floors. Like all of the kids in Army ROTC were like on this one section in the dorms at RIT. And I remember they were all gone, and there were like 3 kids that were left and that were not a part of it. And there was this one kid who was like friends with some of the others that didn't go, and they wanted to pull a prank on him. And so they broke into his room, and they like, it's kind of really disgusting, but this kid had a lot of porn on his computer.
Right.
And so they thought it would be funny to go in.
Many college kids probably do, yeah.
They thought it would be funny to go in and change all of the titles to like Brian Touches Little Boys or, you know, something like that.
Right.
And so, but yeah, and so like they put, so the door was unlocked, and then I think there was this one kid named Hawk. That was his last name, Hawks. Whatever, yeah, doesn't matter. But he, we're not gonna go into it, yeah. But he decided he was gonna super glue Brian's $3,000 computer shut.
Oh.
And so he super glued it shut, and so all the kids come back, and then Brian starts freaking out that his $3,000 computer has been, like, you know, super glued shut. And then before you know it, it's like, okay, so campus security comes in, and then troopers come in, and they're like fingerprinting everything. And it's like, I remember going up and saying to this kid, I was like, dude, you need to tell them what you did. I remember this kid's face of just looking at me. He's like, no. It's like, they're fingerprinting everybody. Like, they're fingerprinting this place. They're gonna just like, it's just gonna be better to do this. And I remember him just like the stupidest look on his face, like, no. And I was like, okay, fine, then I will. And I went over, and like I told him, I was like, listen, you guys are wasting your time here. They thought that, like, you know, some other people had broken in, and like they were worried that this was.
It was a true safety concern in some. I mean, I guess.
Well, sure. They thought it was like a genuine attack on like
Right.
an RIT student from an outside thing. They didn't think that it was a prank. And so, the troopers left, and then it became, just campus security, and it wasn't wasting, just like their time, because they've got better things to do. And the next thing I know is like, I got this letter saying that I was to leave the dorm and go to RIT Inn until I go to my, whatever it's called, like behavioral, not counseling, but it was like, it was like a hearing. It was like they're like, oh, you're associated with these kids that broke into this place, and so you have to go to the same hearing that they're going to for the behavioral issues that they went through or whatnot.
Kind of like you were being court-martialed.
Sort of. Well, so that they have nothing to do with ROTC,
right?
But ROTC got wind of this, and they're like, oh, we can't have anybody that would do this to another ROTC student and a cadet. That's not a very cadet thing to do. It's like, what are you talking about? I came forward. I came forward. I told you guys, and that kind of thing. And so I got lumped into this, and I remember like pulling tooth and nail, saying like, hey, I don't want to be associated with these kids. I was like, I just happened to be here. I happened to know that they did it, but whatever. I want my own hearing. I don't want to be looped with them. And so sure enough, I don't get it. I go in with these 3 other kids, and the entire time they're just like yelling about, how could you possibly super glue this kid's computer shut, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting over here like, can I say something? Like, I shouldn't be here. I came forward with this, and I was not allowed to do anything. Before I knew it, I was suspended. And like, we all got the same punishment, suspended.
I'll be honest, I was waiting for you to say you started doing parkour in the courtroom.
No, but I was suspended.
So you got suspended.
And then ROTC saw that I got suspended, or ROTC saw that I got suspended and kicked me out. And then I lost my scholarship, and it was just like, and then suddenly I'd never been in trouble in my life. I always tell my mom I was a jerk as a 6-year-old. I was a little jerk as a 6-year-old. And I tell her all the
She
time,
denies it.
She denies it,
'Cause
but
she
that's,
loves
yeah.
you.
But I tell her, like, I'm really sorry for being a jerk. She goes, you know what? I remember turning 12. It was either 12 or 13. And just like, I was good. I was great. Never did drugs. I never went to parties. I was
So
like,
now everything you had planned to kind of your path to I guess the military, right, and to flying and everything.
Oh, it was
is kinda
gone.
in the toilet now.
it's gone.
These are the best stories because what happens afterwards is always good.
Retribution.
I've learned that in my life. Every time something
long story
like that
short
happens.
long story short is parkour. but
that's
yeah,
it.
no,
That's the end of it.
But no, it was just like, it blew my mind. It blew my mind that this could happen. I remember calling my mom and being like, you're never going to believe what happened. And I remember telling her, and my mom was like, no, she knows my mom. She's just like, she could understand that when my mom gets like, it's just like, that cannot happen.
Yeah.
And we were
She's a
calling
force to be
everybody.
reckoned with.
We were calling everybody, and then it was like, oh no, you just file an appeal. You'll get your own hearing, and it'll be fine. And I swear to God, this is like a movie. We filed for an appeal to get my own hearing, denied. Didn't get it. I had to go for an appeal with the other 3 kids because they filed an appeal too. And it's like, come on, you did this.
Oh,
like
yeah.
you did it, you know? And so I had to walk in with them. I remember my my counselor was with me. I got an advisor, and I remember him walking in. He was like, oh no, I know the, whoever the chairman is of this board. He's really nice, blah, blah, blah. And then I remember like we were hanging out with the other, like the kid that super glued the $3,000 computer. We were with his advisor too. We're hanging out, and then we got like walked in, and everybody was like, whoa, where did he go? And I swear to God, it's like, he just left. He was there with his advisor. We were talking with them. We were talking with his advisor, and then he left. And we walked in, and I remember the board looked at us like, where's the other kid? I go, I don't know. I go, well, I mean, without his side of the story, we can't make any changes. It's like, come on. And so we left the appeal. Nothing changed. It was still suspended. My mom called everybody. She got on the phone with like the vice president of student affairs, and she was the first person to be like, oh yeah, that seems crappy. Like, I can't believe that RIT did that to you, and then, reversed everything. But at that point, it was like, ridiculous. So the police report got changed. I wasn't included in it. I wasn't suspended. They did make me stay at the RIT Inn. I was kicked out of the dorms because they're like, they can't prove, oh, geez, we can't have this could possibly cause like fights or whatever. And then I remember taking that and going to the ROTC place and saying like, oh, can I file an appeal? Can I get put back into ROTC? I had nothing to do with this. And I had the police report with me. I had all the changes highlighted. I remember walking into the colonel's office and like telling him this, and I like wrote everything out, and I had everything planned. I like was put like a couple days of work into this to try to get back. And I swear to God, he looked at me and he was like, oh, it doesn't matter anyway. Your health exam came back negative, and like, you have asthma, so you can't get reinstated. And I was like, you're shitting me right now. And he just had the stupidest look on his face, like, you just don't want to say that you're wrong, that you were wrong, that you made the wrong decision. And it ruined everything for me of like what it meant to be in the military, what it meant to like have the moral and ethical standards of the military and everything else. And it kind of crushed me, and it blew my mind. And I went into this like massive depression, this like super downward spiral. I literally just stayed in my room at RIT. I went to class, I came back, and I just sat in my room, and I did nothing. I just did nothing. I would like waste away playing video games, made no friends. And I remember after like a couple of months of that, I was like, I got to get myself out of this slump. And so I ended up doing something that I had like enjoyed as a kid, and I did martial arts. I did Taekwondo for a decade. It's like, you know what? Let's look and see if RIT has something that I can just like, find that's familiar. I think the Taekwondo class was full, but there was an Aikido class. I'm like, hey, cool. It's still martial art. I've never done Aikido. Let's go ahead and play around with it. And so I got in this class, and I met my soon-to-be buddy and roommate, Artem. And Artem had this cool friend named Zach who came from Maryland, and where the first parkour gym was, and Zach trained parkour. And it was like, whoa. I remember the first time he did now the crappiest Kong. It was like the crappiest Kong. It's just a vault that we do in parkour. But it blew my mind. It blew my mind. I was like, how did you do that?
Yes.
And I remember it's like, oh, it's called parkour. And it's like, I must know more. And it was like this immediate change of like, this is everything I've ever wanted in my life. And then it's kind of just like, oh, it's a fairy tale from there on out. Oh my goodness. Yeah. But yeah, that set me off. And so ever since the spring of 2007, I've just been like so into parkour. It like literally changed my life. And I'm sure that anybody could probably find something and be like, oh, it's changed my life. I can't imagine it without it. But for me, it was parkour. I can't imagine not having it.
Yeah, and it's funny that you were into martial arts too, because I kind of think about it, and a lot of people when they watch anything with martial arts in a movie, I mean, a lot of kung fu movies have some level of parkour in it. I mean, when they're fighting, right? If they have fight scenes and stuff, they're kind of utilizing stuff around them too to kind of.
If we want a quick and dirty definition, we usually say it's martial arts meets gymnastics.
Right.
Yeah.
Except without the fighting.
Without
right?
the fighting.
Sure.
It's all
the fleeing.
It's all the flight, not the fight.
Is there someone that's like mixing those?
Jackie Chan.
Parkour?
Jackie Chan is our spirit animal.
Just him.
No, he was like
So
OG though.
It's an amazing story that you just went through, because I found that that's usually the path to like where people end up finding like their thing, Well, yeah.
Yeah.
There's all this stuff that happens. You have these ideas of what you're going to do, and then you end up through the world kind of forcing you to rethink those things, where you end up needing to be.
Yeah, where you fit in.
So how do you feel now? Because obviously now you have your own parkour studio. You started just learning, I'm guessing, from Zach, right?
No, this is actually this is an interesting story.
Which story? Which one? You're looking at me. I'm going like, there's so many.
How did you learn?
Art major turned bad art major turned good exercise science turned bad exercise science turned open a gym.
So in 2007.
Well, also I'd have to say probably like you like the discipline part of the military, right? Somewhat. And you obviously like the discipline part probably of the martial art stuff.
Latched onto it immediately of like I could see all of the similarities.
And all that passion and joy transferred very easily.
Sure. And so in 2007, it was like YouTube was sort of it. I think YouTube was still technically its own thing. I don't think Google bought it yet. I can't remember, but I remember like Google Video was a thing separate of YouTube. And I remember there were a couple online forums where people would go and they would talk about parkour and everything else. And then because there were so few people that were doing it, but I mean the internet really kind of created parkour. Just being able to visualize it and then share it with millions of people, especially across the globe, that like parkour would never have happened without the internet. Like it was the perfect storm of being done at the right time in the right place in the history of the world and everything else like that. But so there was a lot of people that were attempting to teach through video, and it was terrible. Yeah. It was a lot of people just like, okay, my name's Jim, we're gonna do parkour today, and so we're gonna show you this Kong vault, and it's like super dynamic, dangerous vault, whatever. He's like, okay, so great, you just put your arms in front of you, and then like your arms go through, and then there you go, and it's done.
There's still a lot of those on YouTube too.
Oh yes,
I'm
unfortunately,
trying to teach myself piano, and I'm like, all right, I really got to get a teacher because
it's there's
no
draw two circles and then draw the rest of the owl.
Like,
what? Come on, there's more steps.
It's like double speed through the rest of
it. And so growing up, my mom was like super against doing anything reckless. She reluctantly allowed me to do football, and I only did football for one season because I realized how stupid it was. I weighed 120 pounds in high school.
Right. He got thrown around a lot.
So you were a linebacker.
I remember the first day of like joining the football team, and we were doing hitting drills, and I remember this like running back named Dan, and Dan like puberty was great to Dan. And I remember being like, 120 pound scrawny old me. And then I see Dan like running at me. He's like, yeah, Charles, you could stop him. It's like, plant your feet. Okay. Plant my feet. And I remember like getting hit and waking up like
Just
10
like
feet later.
like a tree
It's like,
falling over.
Yeah.
Right.
it was more like an explosion. I'm like, and I remember waking up and being like, this is not for me. And I was like, on the bench the entire season. But yeah.
So you were watching all these videos or attempting, and they were terrible, and so you're now like, all right.
So with me, it's like, I'm not just going to try something if I don't feel comfortable with it. Like my mom raised me different than that. As much as like I feel like I'm not my mom, like that part of my mom stuck with me. I can't do it. I can't just will myself to do reckless stuff. And so the way that I got around that was I got really interested in exercise science, and like the nerd in me was just like, yes, science. All right, fantastic. And I was like reading anatomy and physiology books for fun.
Huh.
What? And so it eventually got to this point where I was spending all this time reading anatomy and physiology books when I should be spending time in my studio doing my actually like art projects and thesis work and everything else like that. And I was like blowing that off, and I was just jumping around Rochester and downtown and doing whatever, and then reading anatomy and physiology books in my off time. It's like, what, I should probably look into this. And so RIT didn't have an exercise science degree at the time, but they did have this wonderful program that I think doesn't get the amount of attention that it should have. But right now it's called the School of Individualized Study, and it's way ahead of its time. It's the ability to take any person, any candidate, and say, like, what are you interested in? And then they put you with an advisor, and they try to formulate your own unique degree for you. And it's incredible.
Yeah, that makes way more sense than
Absolutely.
So there are some careers that, like, I get that it's cookie cutter. Like, if you want to be this certain kind of engineer, yeah, you need to take this requirement of classes, otherwise you're not going to get hired, blah, blah, blah. But especially if you want to get, maybe a more open-ended job, or especially if you want to try to create your own job, you don't need a cookie cutter degree. And so you get to kind of piece things together of and the advisor is there to say like, oh, you're interested in this like craft. Well, but are you doing it for an entrepreneurial thing? Like, you should probably take some business classes too. And they start piecing that together. And then, you make yourself unique the second you graduate.
So yeah, let's take a little detour here in the conversation, because I think that's an interesting place that we could take. So I think the education system in America really needs to take a look at what we're doing with people, because I see right now a lot of younger individuals. I mean, I employ 10 people, right? So I have
Same.
And so you see
employees.
a lot of younger people coming out of college and still not knowing, what am I doing, right? And I think we need to take a look at, because we have a really good method of churning out test takers that can get through the whole, kindergarten to the end of college, get a PhD or whatever. Mm-hmm. But at the end, you end up with people sometimes that are just miserable in their lives, and we're falling behind still on the world stage compared to countries that are forcing individuals, this is what you're going to do and you're going to be successful at it for the country, right?
Sure.
But I think we're in a unique position in the United States to be able to to look at our schools and look at the education system and start that kind of program that you're talking about from the beginning. Teach a bunch of life skills from the beginning. All right, how do you deal with money? What happens when you become a parent, right? Because those things can easily derail anything that you have in terms of a goal from the beginning, right? So you don't have money and you have children early. All right, how do you get around those things, or how should you plan for that stuff? I think that should be taught earlier. Yeah. But then also, all right, what are your skill sets, and maybe where should we direct you to best fit into society as a whole? Like, maybe you would be really good at doing the engineering thing or the doctor thing, but maybe you wouldn't, and maybe you'd be better
Even
opening a parkour
Yeah.
studio or something we don't quite know yet, but there are skills that are in you that are really good for entrepreneurship or for
Sure. Or even that some of that pigeonholing that is already happening, it ends up being that they'll graduate and like, yeah, great, I'm making a 3-figure salary, but I hate my life. And
Yeah, I'm
now
just miserable.
I'm going to do this for 2 years because I feel like I have to. And then they need to have a huge life change. And then what?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're 40 or 50 by the time you realize, oh, maybe I shouldn't have been in the military.
Right.
And maybe
Yeah.
I should have been pursuing something that is more of a passion for me. And
He's going in for round 3, everybody.
Oh, you get it. It's so good.
Try
it's
it.
so
It's
good.
the right
it's
price.
a $25 bottle.
So good.
Like
So-
that blows my
Redemption.
mind. How?
So,
how?
but
How do you
it's-
do it? Redemption. I
But
don't
that's why I think life is such a great teacher too, is because while those things don't exist, the things like what happened to you in college that force you to be like, okay, the status quo of what everyone's saying is the cookie cutter of what you've got to do, that really isn't your path. All right, so life is gonna force you. There's no
Yeah.
way
I feel
you're
like
going to do
it's
that.
very few people's
and,
path.
And over and over and over again, it told you, no, you got to do something else.
Right.
And now you're here. And I don't know if this is where you're ending up either, because there may be some other thing that happens, right,
Yeah,
that
right.
causes you to go somewhere else. But in the end, at least you're not in the position where you realize that, now you're like in the military as an officer somewhere and you're like, I hate this.
Right.
But anyway, I think the education system as a whole needs some sort of leader to be like, all right, let's look at what we're doing here, because there's an opportunity
No, yeah.
in the miscalculations of what we've been doing for the past 100 years with the education system, that programs like that, and there are schools that are starting to kind of realize
Right.
that that's what we can do.
So I think a nice parallel here is bringing it back to parkour.
Yeah.
Every path is unique, and being able to explore and make like a defining, what do I want to say? A definition of parkour is really limiting, and every individual gets to make parkour what they want it to be, which is sort of part of the beauty.
Yeah. And I mean, parkour at its, at its essence is about adaptation. And I think it's so interesting how human beings get so wrapped into trying to make everything.
This is what I should be doing.
Yeah,
this is
they
what
want to
this is the
homogenize
next
everything,
step.
and or just like algorithms and everything. Just like this is how you do it. You plug the data in, and then ta-da, there you go. It's
Yeah.
like that's not life.
No.
It's not how it works, and you need to teach people how to be adaptable and how to really think internally and go, what am I interested in? Where are my skills? How do I apply them? And how do I do some sort of good for society that I enjoy doing? And typically from there comes financial stability.
Yeah.
'Cause you just have to be a little crafty to figure it out.
What year are you guys in now?
This is
On the-
8.
Past 8.
So
Yeah, past 8, just
Yes.
past 8.
that's a long time for a small business to be in business.
Woo woo.
Yeah.
Right? They
Yeah.
usually say, what is it?
Struggling,
like 3 years,
but we're
3 to
doing
5
it.
It's a
years.
it's a
So, hey,
whole lot of perseverance.
So,
That's
and part of the reason why I kind of wanted you to be on the show too, and I reached out to you about, you'd kind of said like, oh, I think you initially said like, oh, you have a podcast or something like that, right?
I saw something on
Yeah.
Facebook.
But I was very interested in you guys too, because it's not a traditional business. It's not like okay, I'm going to buy a Taco Bell franchise and start,
And use
start
their formula,
Yeah,
right.
use a formula. This is a whole brand new thing that you guys are kind of doing in Rochester,
Yeah.
especially, right? Because you're the only parkour studio that I know about anyway, and that matters.
And we were the
in Rochester.
first in New York
the
State
less.
too. So that
All
was
right.
a big
Yeah.
deal.
So obviously it goes beyond, this is a business that's been proven to make money. It's more to you than that, right? And so I see that in the
Yeah.
way that you talk about it too.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
We-
And Nicole too, because Nicole has that same thing. Like there's something behind it that is a underlying philosophy or something that you really believe that it brings out of probably yourself that maybe you want to share with people, and that's the best way to do. I think a
Life.
business.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think
and life too,
Yeah,
but business especially, because if you're not passionate about it and you're starting something new, there's no way that a customer is going to buy into your product
Yeah.
if you're not passionate about, if there isn't something beyond just money. Because if you're like, okay, this is a cheap thing I'm going to sell to you and I want you to give me more than what I paid for it, that isn't a business model.
No.
A business model is, this is something that is going to deliver more to
Joy
you.
or
And it takes you believing in that, right?
Right.
To deliver that in a successful way. And you've done that now for 8 years, however successful monetarily. You guys seem to be relatively
every
happy
so often,
and satisfied with what you're doing.
Yeah, every so often we get people that ask us like, oh, it's okay. So technically, down the line of the story of like blah blah blah, Rochester Parkour, and making it what it is. It started off as we attempted to make a club at RIT, and then RIT was like, no. No, they are way too litigious for that. Like, we're gonna get sued like crazy. They wanted us to like go in the wrestling room with like helmets and mouth guards and elbow pads and everything else. Like, you guys don't get it. But I mean, it's fine. I understood. Whatever.
Again, it's something where a rejection then ultimately led you to do something.
We went out and we were like, you know what? And I think Zach and I went back home and we bought RochesterParkour.com that night that we got denied, and we turned it into a community thing. It's a community organization. We met in downtown. At the time it was called Manhattan Square Park. Now it's Martin Luther King Jr. Park. And we met in the cement jungle that you can't find on the website because I don't know why the city doesn't advertise this, but it's like one of the most amazing parks in the United States. And it was actually the architect, Albert Paley, was like, every early parkour community had an Albert Paley park. And he did parks all...
Lawrence Halprin?
Oh, shoot. Lawrence Halprin. Albert Paley is different artist. Yeah.
Nope.
Lawrence Halprin.
There you go.
And every early parkour community had one of these. And this guy was an architect, and he had this belief that creative spaces would yield creative people. And I feel like parkour people are pretty creative. And it was just so interesting. But like, you go to the website, you don't see anything. They talk about the fun little playground that the museum puts on, the Strong Museum of Play. Cool for them. It's great. It's a wonderful place for kids. I get it. Yeah, absolutely. And then they talk about how the ice rink, and that's it. It's like, whoa, there's way more history here. But we would go out in the park and we would, hang out together and we would train together and we would all like learn together. And for a while we had some of the largest weekly gatherings of parkour people in the nation.
And we would host Leave No Trace events.
Yeah,
which
and we
is
would clean
sort
it
of
up.
similar to the trash tag that's going on right now.
So what?
We'd clean it up.
Explain that. What is that?
Yeah. So big concept with the parkour community, because it can be really misconstrued with like, oh, breaking and entering and doing destructive things, and no. So the idea of leaving no trace, that you're respecting not only the environment that you're in, but also yourself and your body. And so a way to do that and serve the community is for everybody to get together and clean up the spaces, remove the heroin needles and cigar wrappers and other things that we won't mention. And then really legitimately glass, so that was a big, we're crawling and rolling and moving around in all parts of our body. And so we would go, and I think it would be like at least 13 bags, like huge
it was gross.
Black bags of trash. And we would clean them up, and then we would train and do a big jam. Yeah. So.
But yeah, I think looping back into the business, though, we started the business after I graduated. I was a personal trainer for a little while at RIT. And that just stayed after I graduated, and I had this decent job. I'm like, okay, great, fantastic. This is cool. And whatever. And so we ended up deciding, I call it the stupidest, most amazing decision of our lives of just I was like, I've got $6,000 in savings. That's enough to start a business, right? Mm-hmm. And then we were like, yeah, 3-year lease.
If they build
let's do it.
If we build it, they will come.
What's a business plan? And just, and doing it. But and so people ask us like, wow, you started the gym with $6,000 and now you're 8 years down the road. Like, oh my goodness, can you can I pick your brain and figure out how you did it?
Now you've got $6,002. That's entrepreneurship.
I tell people, if we went to business school, we wouldn't still be doing this.
Now you've got $599.
Or $5,999.
Acceptable.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like we're in business because we can't imagine doing anything else. And I can't imagine there not being a place like this open, available to the community. And it's a whole heck of a lot of perseverance of just like, can't stop, won't stop. And, you know, I'm sure like if we were just in this for profit, we would not still be doing this.
Yeah. And so what do you think, what would be your, because I can imagine you probably have a theory, I guess you can say, on like how parkour relates to life, right? Just like every martial art, right? There's the discipline that's involved, and that how that relates to life, and you know, maybe being having the power to bite, but not biting because you know you have the power to bite,
Yeah,
right?
so it's like,
and so parkour. I heard you mention adaptability,
right.
so I think that might be some of it. But what is like your
To be and to last is a very popular notion within the parkour.
What is it? Say it again.
To be and to last. But the idea that we can become more capable, stronger, confident, healthy humans is the goal, and the joy and the journey, and it's never ending.
I fully and wholeheartedly believe that parkour is just essentially life.
Yeah.
Of the truest sense, and you can even relate this back to like a definition of what parkour is. I think the dichotomy between how kids train and like you don't even consider it training, but when you think of it in essence, it is completely training, versus how we train and do fitness as adults is like so completely ass backwards. And so the first fitness gyms, air quotes, if you will, were playgrounds. Kids have this natural instinct to play. And if they didn't have a natural instinct to play and say like, you know, I'm going to race you, or like, I'm going to run as fast as I can just to see what it feels like, or, you know, that's a really high wall, I want to climb it, you know, that kind of thing. And so the most fun thing for us, like you put a kid in our gym and we need to like stop them from climbing stuff. It's like,
sure
oh,
they
hey,
don't
Johnny, let's not climb that yet. Let's get your parent to sign a waiver first. You know, but
Right.
you know, let's talk about this first. You know, that kind of thing. And then you put an adult in this space, and they just kind of like stare at you blankly,
They truly don't know what to do.
and they go like, "What do you want me to do with this?"
And they're nervous and they're fearful and not, you know, they don't want to do something that's embarrassing or incorrect or something that they're not already
like
good
crawling
at.
on their hands.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And so
you put a kid in front of one box and you say, okay, buddy, we're going to get over this box as many times as you can. And they're going to come up with 150 ways to do it. And probably 25 of them are so common that we give them names, right? And then you put an adult in front of that box and they just shut down, and they don't trust, they don't know, they don't explore, and it's just such a shame.
I mean, they just forgot how to play. They
Yeah.
forgot that playful instinct that motivated them to do things with their body. Like the human body was designed to be moved. And a lot of the healthiness with the human body relates back to its movement. Being able to manipulate your arms and move everything around, the ability to, you know, flood your blood vessels with some like metabolic waste and everything else like that. Like it helps it function. It's like, you know, flushing the system or like going in for an oil change. You have to do it. It's got to happen. And if you don't, if you just like, if you would abstain from doing it, like you're going to have problems and you're going to incur some huge costly expenses on your car. It's the same sort of experience. If you don't use your body, it's going to waste away.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing with adults too, and their aversion to exercise is the fact that it feels like, okay, I got to go into this dungeon of a gym, I've got to get on a treadmill for an hour, or I've got to lift weights with someone that's yelling at me to lift weights.
Right.
And I think finding fun in it is like, that's why I like trail running too. I
Trail
like
running
trail
is-
running.
yeah, it's very-
like you're out in nature,
very
you're just
parkour.
running around or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like roots and stuff,
application.
and but you got to enjoy it. It can't be just like you're a machine out there just doing you know,
Right.
the machine thing. Especially as like at my age, I'm like 80, 90 at this point.
Oh my
Who
goodness.
knows?
Oh, you look amazing
knows?
for 80 or 90.
Oh my
Who
goodness.
knows? Now I stopped counting after 30. So,
I'm
but I
almost
think
30.
She's going to be 30 on Saturday.
On
Are you?
Saturday.
like, oh no shit.
Yeah,
Yup.
30,
All right.
30, the big 30.
Yep.
All right.
baby over here. Little baby. It's fine.
But like I think having fun while doing it is what is kind of missing from it, which I think that's why people really get addicted to like what's the gym,
Uh-oh.
Oh,
the CrossFit.
Yeah,
CrossFit,
yeah.
sure.
Because there's like a little bit of a community.
Sure,
They
sure.
do some
Oh,
like
yeah.
fun event stuff together. There's like, they go out, they have beers or whatever afterwards.
Yeah.
Like it's fun.
Sure, sure.
Which is the same in the trail, the trail running community, even some of the weightlifters and the bodybuilders and stuff like that. And obviously parkour. I mean, you probably have outings where you're out,
Sure.
in nature, and I'm doing air quotes,
Yeah.
like,
I mean, yeah.
somewhat.
Unfortunately, we don't reside in gray areas, and liability insurance is
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
expensive.
obviously,
But
from a
as
business
humans,
standpoint,
yeah,
but
yeah.
like you guys, I'm
As
sure you
friends,
go
yes.
out and you test some things
Absolutely,
like, what can I bring
absolutely.
back here,
Yeah.
right? But I think that's what's missing from it. Like, it's not, exercise isn't like some drudgery thing that you have
No.
to do.
Well,
and once
so-
you start doing it consistently, you start to realize, like, I miss this when I don't do this.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
The marketing industry has ruined fitness
Absolutely.
for adults, and it is the worst, most predatory industry I've ever seen, and it preys on people's guilt, it preys on their self-esteem, and it just like it feeds them nonsense of like
And
you need a
incorrect
six-pack.
lies.
Yeah, and you need
Not
to be as
just
skinny
nonsense,
as
lies.
possible, and just like everybody's airbrushed and photoshopped out to shit and everything else like that. And even just like bodybuilders don't look like that all the time. Like it's a very and it's amazing that they can do that.
And also the amount of stress that puts on their body for a desired goal.
Exactly.
Like that's a goal. That's not health.
Right.
Right.
It's a different thing. It's the same exact thing of like, a professional football player is amazing. They're probably going to get CTE,
Right.
but it's also amazing.
There's
It's
a trade-off
amazing,
there.
right?
Yeah, and
it's
they
a trade-off.
They get to make that choice, and that's amazing.
And so it just like, but to put it like that as the face forward of what fitness is, that if you don't have a six-pack abs, like you're not fit. Bullshit.
Yeah.
It's complete bullshit.
Are we allowed to curse? Is that
Oh, yeah.
okay? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'll
Yeah,
have to edit this when it goes to
We'll have a beep.
terrestrial radio. But I've got 10 episodes that I've got to do that.
Okay,
with, so
cool.
it's like, whatever. I like this format way better than having a.
It-
Au natural.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's utter nonsense, and it just makes people have this extreme negative association with health and fitness, and it makes it not fun, and it turns it into something that's just like, you need to do this, otherwise you're not going to be accepted by society.
Right, or this idea that you could possibly run enough miles on the treadmill to counteract the cookie you're
Yeah.
planning to
Oh,
eat later.
God,
it's
I
just
hate
such
that
the
so
wrong
much.
mentality.
The
It's so
like
not okay.
They're like, oh, if you want to eat this blueberry muffin, it's going to be an hour of running on the treadmill. It's like, dude, if you want to eat Nicole makes amazing chocolate chip
I
cookies.
do, actually.
She makes
That's
some of
very
the
true.
best chocolate chip cookies I've ever had.
I expect them now.
Oh yeah. It's
Next time,
yeah,
next
well,
time.
to the
yeah,
bar.
Well, we'll bring you a chocolate chip cookie. You will agree. These are amazing. They're so good. And it's like, it better be made with butter and like have some sugar in
Yeah, if
it,
you're
and
gonna-
what
if
not.
you're
And
gonna
it's
do
gonna
it,
be
do it.
if you're gonna do it, like freaking enjoy,
There you go.
enjoy
Keep
that
it-
cookie.
you
keep
can
it
curse.
And don't and like to sit
Maybe
there.
if it's about a cookie, you got to
Yeah.
freaking.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's just but to see people be like, oh, I really shouldn't because I'm trying to watch my figures. Like, are you
No,
kidding
no.
me?
develop a healthy relationship with food. Move your body. It'll be okay.
Yeah, and I think that again, it comes back to the education system and where we're leaning. I mean, they're taking out music programs now. They're taking out
So
physical
sad.
education programs.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff is going away, and we should be moving more towards that, I think.
Yeah.
And basing our society in America on freedom and what we're doing different than the rest of the world, I think, is our strength, and I think we need to lean in that direction more.
Absolutely.
And I think that with the parkour studio, you guys, I know you do a lot of like kids programs and things like that too, right? Where you're getting kids in there, and I have
ages 3 and up.
there you
Yeah.
go. So I have two myself, and it's a challenge now to get them because the days of like just go outside and ride your bike and don't come back until 10 o'clock at night.
I know.
Yeah, right.
Like you'd
know.
be,
You'll get CPS called on you.
CPS will show up. Like, what are you
Right.
doing? They're riding their bikes at night, outside.
Yeah.
But I think that's lacking, and what you guys are doing are interesting because at least it's a safe environment. Parents can come in, they can bring their kids, and they can climb on stuff, and you can teach them how to do that safely without, breaking an arm, hopefully, or doing anything like that. And so to what kind of like children's programs, like how does that work? Because you did say that like kids tend to just
along those lines, there are some really amazing playgrounds that are popping up in Europe that are, what are they called? They're like you know what I'm talking about. Ones where you can set fires.
Yeah, they're like
Exploration.
weird exploration
What?
parks.
Did you say
Like
set fire?
literally, there are humans that observe the children and will intervene if it gets too far, but they can experience repercussions, and that is
Yeah.
incredibly important. So if they decide that they want to light this pile of wood on fire and see what happens, they're allowed to do that. And so, to those extents, that's incredibly important, those trial and errors and learning limitations and
Yeah.
understanding how to regulate. In the very beginning, we talked about employees and experience and being able to branch out and be actually prepared for the real world. And I agree with you that more often than not, they're just so limited, and I can't tell you how many people I've had to teach how to mop. Like, that's silly.
Yeah.
But for these repercussions, it's so important. So the way that we focus on it is what we call the rigid environment. And so what we are really valuing is this idea that, your child is going to get bonked a little bit. He's going to get a little scrape. He's going to get a little bruise, because it's going to teach him or her what's important
Right.
and what they can do safely. We're going to be there. They're not going to die.
Right.
But to understand where they can push their own boundaries and explore and be able to be empowered that way is just so valuable. I actually was tabling something recently in a cafeteria, and I saw, I think it was measured risk or acceptable risk or something. And they were encouraging children to take measured risks by trying new foods. That was their example in the cafeteria. And that was really inspiring to me that, yes, we need to learn how to take measured risks. That it's not, we got to make sure to be safe. We can't, fear-mongering, this. No, that's how we learn and how we grow and how we become mighty.
Our new slogan, shameless plug, is learn skills, not fear.
Yeah.
And it's just helping people understand that like, we understand that the rigid environment is unforgiving, and it can be, depending on how you approach it, it can be dangerous. But you approach it the right way and you learn how to approach it the right way, it can be the greatest, most amazing
Asset.
teacher and the best instructor. Better. You get it. You
He's
get that
going for
redemption.
number 4.
You get that.
It's delicious.
It's so good.
Okay.
But it can be a better instructor than I will ever be, and it's understanding how to approach it, how to take those little minuscule jumps, those little teeny tiny progressions that help you unlock new understanding of what you are capable of, what you are able to do. And it blows my mind how many teenagers we get that start off with us that still like have never had the negative association with, the bruising that happens when you climb with your knees.
Right.
It's awful.
I was just about to
bad.
say a big litmus test of gauging ability when we watch new clients is whether or not, when they are told to climb up on something, moderate, whether or not they use their knee is totally an indicator of whether or not they've played outside before.
And it's the same too, because now a lot of playgrounds and a lot of play areas cannot be built unless they have a certain number of like
Steps
safety
and
hazards of like they need to now be they can't have walls that are too high, they can't have any metal bars exposed, they need to have soft flooring, and then there also needs to be like brightly colored, and it turns play into this thing that can only be done in a very specific environment
In context.
And it says to a kid, like conscious or subconscious, mostly subconscious, of just, hey, I'm only allowed to explore in these kind of environments, and I'm never allowed to explore in outside environments. And at the same time, it's like you go to any playground ever, now there's a lot of like age restrictions, and not even like age restrictions of like, it's you cannot be here if you're
over the age 10
yeah.
even.
And it's like you
Which is
cannot be on the
incredible.
equipment. And so it's like, well, okay, part of that is I understand that somebody has paid for this, the city has paid for this, and they can't make it applicable to a 250-pound male. I
Right.
get it, you know,
Yeah.
and the forces that are involved with that. But at the same time, it's like, wow, like adults can't be at playgrounds anymore. And they can't move around with their kids anymore. And so now kids get this association of kids play at playgrounds, parents sit. And like, oh, when I'm a parent, I'm going to bring my kids to the playground, but I'm going to sit.
Shameless plug for the MVP facility that they're putting out in the city.
Oh, yeah.
They're actually creating an adult playground, and it's freaking
Oh, are they?
awesome.
On Cobb's Hill, it's
Yes.
going to be debuting in a couple of weeks.
We're
So
working
in Rochester, New York.
In
they're-
Rochester, New
in
York,
Rochester,
yeah.
New York. There's a lot of local personal trainers and fitness facilities that are working with them that will
Oh, that's
provide
really cool.
programming, and we'll be one of them. We're very excited about
Nice.
it. Yeah, they're so
It's not
freaking-
perfect. It's not
It's not
perfect.
perfect, but at least it's something. It's a step in the correct direction.
It is very much a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
So I'll kind of bring it back because I know we had talked a little bit about like you know, getting hurt and all that sort of stuff, and a big thing I'm learning as I get older is the more I guess the more, this sounds weird, but the more you suffer or the more suffering you encounter, the more you grow, right? So
Sure.
like with
Yeah.
and it's in all the exercise sciences for the most part, which is why they're such a great teacher. And I think for the intellectuals, sometimes they tend to think of exercise as like, oh, that's a physical pursuit, right? But there's a great mental thing that comes with it. Whereas, like let's take bodybuilding for instance, right? So you want a muscle to grow, you're going to need to add more weight to it. If you want to get better at parkour, sometimes you're going to have to scrape a knee. Maybe you might have to break a bone here or there.
I'm gonna shut that
So
down
you don't-
really quick.
You don't,
Shutting
you don't,
that down.
you don't break a bone, but
Yeah.
you get a scrape here and there.
Contusions.
Maybe a little bruise.
Contusions
yeah.
are acceptable.
You want to become a better boxer. You're going to have to get punched in the face.
Sure,
and
sure,
you're going to have to
absolutely.
get used to getting punched in the face, and then learn to enjoy it, and then learn how much you don't like it to avoid it, right?
Yeah.
But you need to embrace the suffering of it in order to get better at the thing you're doing.
Can we parallel that too, just like in general, struggle? People are so against the idea of struggle.
Well, I think that's where I was kind of getting to, like with
Humans adapt to stress
With-
Right.
of any form.
you know,
Yeah.
with your eventual move from, you know, being rejected from the military and that sort of thing, the things that get in your way, you can think of those as extra plates being added onto your,
Totally.
you know, onto your bar, where you're getting stronger the more that you go through it. And you know, I worked in a lot of fast food places when I was younger, and I hated it.
I never
and
did fast
It
food. I
felt
only
like
did
a struggle
retail.
the whole time. Like
But probably made you.
I've definitely had to like claw my way up the societal.
But that helped you with your
thing, and-
business now, though.
Yeah. So
Oof.
the more the older I get, and the more I become, and I'm doing air quotes again, successful in what I'm doing, and what I think of as successful, me being satisfied with where my life is.
Yeah.
The more I realize how much those struggles led me to be where I am now, and led me or taught me the skills necessary and built up my muscles enough where I could be successful now. So I think that every time I talk to someone, I mean, this is episode 21 now, and I've spoken to a number of people that have like pursued what they want to do in life. And every time I talk to them, that's what I kind of find is a common thread, is the embracing of that struggle.
That's so funny that you say that. So our best friend Jesse,
Yes.
who runs a program in New York City called the Movement Creative. He's incredible. He actually married us. He's like fantastic.
He was our minister.
He didn't marry both of you. He performed the
He performed the marriage ceremony. Correct. Yes.
But his slogan for the
Not
Movement
that
Creative.
there's anything wrong with that, if that's what
Yeah,
doing.
yeah. To each his own.
It's Embrace Challenge.
Embrace challenge.
And
It's beautiful.
yeah, it's beautiful, and it's like super simple, but it is like that is the heart of what it is, of embracing challenge of any form, and understanding that
It's an opportunity.
yes, in order for you to progress and be a better human tomorrow than you are today, you have to become comfortable with that uncomfortable feeling. and embrace that challenge. And like, that's the only way that you're going to go. And embracing comfort is fine sometimes, but not all the time. And that just puts you in a huge stagnation, and you start to regress, and you become like worse than you were. And it's not a way to live.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the mental that you were talking about too, because a big focus in the gym that we have is in our upper level classes, we will explore challenges beyond what you just mentioned, physical strength. So we have physical challenges, we have mental challenges, and then we have technical challenges, and things can be combinations of, all of the above. And so being able to not only identify, but self-regulate. So gauge, is this something that's warm-up challenge level for me? Is this something that's like, a couple tries and I'll be able to do it? What are the categories? Is this a physical technical challenge? Is this a mental technical challenge? All these things. And then is this something that's actually not quite in my wheelhouse yet? And how do I approach that to accomplish it successfully and safely in order to be and to last, to endure and preserve your body?
I think that's really cool, because I think that like your measured risk, I think that's where that falls, and having an approach to that where you're not going to just jump off a building. Okay, I'm going to start parkour by jumping off a building. That's not where you start. You need to figure out, okay, where is the end of my comfort zone, and how do I keep pushing that a little bit, and what you said, embracing the uncomfortable. Can I go a minute longer? Can I do a pound more? Can I do
1 foot farther?
Can I make $1 more this month in my business? Can I, can I maybe read an extra page in the book that I'm reading? Can I get,
I like it.
Up my grade in school by a degree. No, what is it called? A grade or
point average,
whatever.
GPA.
I'm not a school guy.
It's all good.
I think I find it interesting that for some things in society, most people will assume if they were to see somebody in the weight room deadlifting 300 pounds, most people won't assume that they can try that. It'll be like, I need to start with lower weights first, and then I'll work my way up. But they see something done in parkour, and they instantly relate themselves to saying, I could never do that.
I love that you just said this. This is so true.
But there are also people that are like, I should try that too. It's like, no. This person has been training for a decade.
I have an anecdote to follow this up. So the biggest thing
hit me with that anecdote.
I'm going to hit it with you. The biggest thing that I get from people that are just so fear and apprehensive is having to do with height balance. So they see Charlie up on in an 8-foot bar cage balancing, and they're like, oh my goodness, what if he falls? He's not going to fall.
I'm not going to fall.
And the reality, and it's such a, and okay, that's kind of frustrating to say out loud, right? And parkour is life, parkour is all the time. And I get that from an outside perspective, that's like, this is a little kitschy, come on. But no, the truth is, if he falls, he has complete control to grab the bar, lower himself down. He is strong enough to do that, even in an unexpected moment. And now he's literally 2 feet off the ground and he drops and it's fine. The idea that could be a problem is laughable to a trained human.
My body's just going to be like, I guess I'm falling. I'm dead now.
No.
Okay. I embrace this challenge of death.
But I find that is like the easiest entry point to kind of get people to understand that. And so in the gym, you asked us, what do you do? What do we teach somebody that's just walking in the gym? We have them balance on a bar that's 2 inches off the ground.
Yeah.
Now, granted, without intentionality, you can absolutely still injure yourself doing that. You could roll an ankle.
Sure.
But with intentionality and proper training and focus, you understand that you can build this up. And now the only difference between balancing on a bar 2 inches off the ground and 8 feet is mental. That is a mental challenge. And understanding how to control that, regulate that, understanding, this is how I lower myself. This is how I grab. Do I have a negative pull-up? Yes. Okay. I'm fine doing this. And to understand that is an appropriate application of your training.
So that's kind of why I ask too, like the journey up into it, because people tend to think, okay, you open up a parkour studio right at a school, you were like, I know exactly what I want to do. I want to open up a parkour studio.
Yeah.
And now I'm in business for 8 years, and that's what it is. But that's never what it's like. It's always these, you're just pushing the edge of where you're.
We're shaking our head, by the way.
What? Yeah.
He's correct. It's never how
the
it is.
edge of what what's possible.
Right.
And I think that especially nowadays, like I said, I hire a lot of younger people, and they think, oh, this is just something that comes to you, or it's easy for you to own a business and this sort of thing. But that's not at all how it is. It's always constantly putting a little bit more on my plate than I think I can handle.
Yeah.
And I think the same is for you guys as it seems. And then doing that in a business that you're not passionate about can wear you down. Doing it in something that you at least enjoy and you have a level of passion for, and in your case, an extreme almost level of passion for that almost has beyond my job meaning for you,
Right.
I think is even more important, because that's the only thing that's really gonna bring success. So let's do this. I think this is an awesome place to stop. I think everyone out there should get a little uncomfortable with
Cool.
where they're at
Cool.
and push those boundaries a little bit, and then come
yeah.
into your studio.
Yeah. First class is free. There's very little.
Yeah. So give me a little like commercial here.
Ooh.
So Nicole, looks like he
Okay.
pointed to you. So
Yeah,
you're the.
He's pushing it off on me, folks. Okay. So we have classes for ages 3 and up, kids, youth, and adults. First class is free. Online pre-enrollment is essentially required, very important.
What's the website?
RochesterParkour.com. If you Google Rochester Parkour, pretty much in anywhere near New York State, you'll find us. We end up sending Jesse in New York
Minnesota.
City. Or Minnesota. That happens
Or
too.
Michigan.
Yeah.
Or Connecticut.
We've got pretty good SEO.
There are more Rochesters too. Yeah.
Yeah, true. Rochester Parkour, Parkour. First class is free. Online pre-enrollment's greatly appreciated. The only policy we have in the gym is indoor shoes. We have shoe rentals, and with your first time, it's free, so that's good to go. And then open mind. Yeah, having a good attitude, coming and an open mind. We've got a lot of different options for adults, not just your typical, technique classes where it's very instruction heavy and progression based. We even have movement circuit classes that are based on endurance and kind of monkey see, monkey do. So that'll be a really nice cardio sort of aspect to movement. And then we've got strength classes, what you'd think of with more stereotypical box gym circuit training. And then we've got mobility classes. And if this happens to air on time, if it happens to get out there in time, we've got one for tomorrow, June 20th. From 8 to 9 p.m. We're focusing on the neglected hands and feet. So we're doing a mobility workshop intensive, focusing on rolling out, maintaining proper mobility with your hands and feet.
So in addition,
Yeah.
and maybe this is a shameless plug for myself,
No,
but
I appreciate it.
there's the brewery,
Oh, yeah.
Nine Maidens Brewery, that just opened up right next door to you guys too.
True.
And then of course Muller's Cider House right
Of
next door.
course.
Of course.
And
Muller
you've got-
Center.
And when
And
you're a
you've-
Rochester Parkour member, you get some perks to both of those
Oh,
locations.
there you go.
Because both establishments are amazing.
So as an adult event out, I mean, especially on like a
Yes.
first date, I don't think there's a date night that works better than that.
Oh,
Like, all right, let's
no.
go.
Shared
let's go,
experience.
Let's go
Yeah.
crawl on our hands and
I love
knees
it.
and then go drink afterwards.
Perfect. Yeah.
But I wish you guys the best of luck.
Thank you.
With everything going forward. What's the website again?
RochesterParkour.com.
.com, and you're right on.
University between Blossom and Culver.
Yeah,
near
so
East Ave.
what is it?
Wegmans.
1344? Is that your address too?
1344 University Avenue. If you have any questions, you
We
can
have the
call
same
us.
address. What are you talking about?
That's true.
Different suite numbers, but
Yeah.
1344
It's a big
University
warehouse.
Avenue,
Yes.
Rochester, New York. If you're ever in the Rochester area, because we got some international listeners too.
Oh, yeah.
If you're
And
in
you're-
Rochester, come out, do some parkour,
And you can call us at 585-204-7537. We'll answer any questions that you have.
excellent. This has been fantastic, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
This
I-
is like
I
super
appreciate you
legit.
guys.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys trusting me enough to come out to my
You're awesome. We
my
love working
weirdo
with you.
apartment and check out the view. And it's
Oh, he's had quite a few redemptions,
Jeez.
folks.
so
He's dropping his
And
mic.
he's dropping his
Enjoying
mic.
the view.
We've
and,
had
He's
a good-
ending this interview
No,
right
dude,
now.
Dude, I literally had realized that this is an 8% ABV.
yeah, I saw
I'm
you
gonna
guys.
die.
I saw you guys looking at that.
I am a lightweight. I am a one and done
Well,
lady.
it's
I'm
chai.
very.
It's chai. It's like
I am,
a tea.
Well, I'm very relaxed right now. Let me tell you.
Again, guys, thank you. Rochester
Thank you so much, man.
Parkour.com.
Yes.
Look it up. And everyone listening, thank you for listening. And I don't know if I have
You
a
guys
next
are beautiful.
guest.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
but
awesome.
we'll,
come be a part of all of our communities. We're pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll figure it out and tune in next time. And
Sweet.
download, Google us, and we'll see you next time.
Excellent.